screen share to walk through some slides. She's nodding like, yep, I'm getting there. I had to start the recording first. Just a reminder to make sure you're in the right place. This is volleyball today. The next slide has some information about just agenda and where we're walking through today. Again, these slides will be available to you later, and this may help you find things at that point. The next slide shares with you some information about tournament personnel dashboard. Each of you as a section tournament manager should have a tournament personnel dashboard. If you do not have one at this point, please contact info@mshsl.org and we'll get you set up with that personnel dashboard. If you have multiple dashboards, i.e. you are an AD or a coach and a tournament personnel, just a reminder that way down in the bottom at the blue footer, that's where you toggle between your dashboards. Make sure that you are in your tournament personnel dashboard when you're doing tournament personnel work, because it is different than your AD dashboard. Once you get to your tournament personnel dashboard, if you do not see the right tournament or the right brackets, that's a contact out to your region secretary. He or she is the one that assigns you the tournaments and the brackets that they want you to manage. Moving on to the next slide, there is a new section on your dashboard this year. If you were with us last year, you did not have this. The new section is a spot for our staff to put resources for you as you run a tournament. So these are things in the past that the director or the assistant likely would have emailed out to you. At this point, those documents, I believe Amy is both emailing them out, but they are also all being placed in this spot right here underneath fall tournament management. So when you need to find all those documents about running your section volleyball tournament, this is your spot to come instead of trying to run through all of those emails from Amy and or from Lisa. If you are doing other tournaments, again, keeping track of all those emails can be a real challenge. Those will all be located in this spot. When we're done today, Amy will put the slides in that spot and then also the recording again, so they're all there and ready for you. Next slide. On your tournament personnel dashboard, you also have a button for a website help guide. Behind that, you'll find a number of one-pagers with diagrams and directions that will talk you through the tasks that we're going to move on to and talk about next. I'm going to share those tasks with you. We're not going to talk through how they all get done today, but those instructions are there for you. And as you need help, please reach out and we will get you going on those pieces. There are really 3 pieces that you are responsible for. I'm sorry, one more slide before we get to those. This is a slide that I'm going to give you one caveat as we talk about it. As you're looking for contact information for your coaches and or ADs, this is your spot to go in and pull lists of that contact information. We did discover today, thanks to some soccer folks, that the coach directory is not quite pulling the right people right now. We will get that fixed as soon as we can. Right now, it seems to be pulling some extra folks. So, but this is a great spot as soon as we get that last tweak done to come into that coach directory, sort by volleyball, section 4, class 2A, and pull that contact list of coaches. You'll find right now you've got a couple of extra ones on there. The next one actually gets to you to talk about the 3 tasks that you have on the website. The first one is section event information, then event information for participants and brackets. We know that in many section tournaments, these tasks are shared between tournament personnel and region secretaries. So please work with your region secretary to say which of these tasks am I responsible for and which ones are you taking care of. The 3 need to get done, but they may or may not actually all be you. The first one on there, section event information. This is the spot where dates, venues that go out on the public website. This is not your bracket. This is the information that most of the time region secretaries do this months ahead of the tournament. So if you go perhaps to the volleyball page right now and pick section events and filter down by your section, you should see dates and venues there. They are often ranges of time, their home site, not necessarily the actual sites. And that's put out there early for the public and folks to see when your tournament is going to be. You do have access to update that. But again, region secretaries have generally taken care of that part of it. The second piece, and again, there's the directions on your website help guide of where, if you need to update that, there's a help guide there called section events. The second piece that you do is add resources, documents, etc., for those who participate in your section. Those section event resources are seen by ADs and coaches for your tournament. All ADs and all coaches see this section of volleyball on their dashboard. The far left column and the far right column, Amy Ince adds things into those 2 columns, and everybody in Minnesota sees the same things. The pieces that go in that middle column are ones that you add that the ADs and coaches in your area can see. So those are anything specific to your section tournament. And again, think of those things that you used to send in email, or many, many years ago, if you've been around that long, you used to send them in an envelope with a stamp on it to get to people about how the tournament would run. And now we want all of those things in one area so that those people participating can see those things. And again, you have a direction sheet that says adding section event resources that helps you figure that out and gives you some directions on those. And then the last piece is thinking about brackets. Brackets are created in our office by Amy. Amy looks at your section and says, this section has 8 schools, they're going to get an 8-team bracket. Or they have 15 schools, they're going to get a 16-team bracket. Please look carefully at the bracket that she's created for you. And before you start to work on it, if you don't think it's quite right, reach out to her and say, so I think I need an X team bracket. Please work through this with me and help me out. Once that bracket starts to be filled in, the only way to change the number of teams is to totally scrap that bracket and come back and create a new one. So on that instruction sheet, there are a number of kind of printable worksheets. Many people find they kind of want to, on paper and pencil, work their bracket out as to what seeds are going to play which ones, just to make sure that their bracket's going to work before they go in and start entering that information. Amy, again, has built your brackets. At this point, your region secretary assigns that bracket to you. And then as you're ready, you can start to go in and put information into that bracket. Right now, you can probably put in dates. You may or may not be able to put in times. You can probably put in a venue called high seed. Obviously, you can't put in teams yet, but that will come. The more information you have on that bracket, the more helpful it is to people, but it's also equally as unhelpful to have any wrong information. So if you don't know the dates yet, I would suggest not putting those dates in the bracket and adding them as you can. Some of you know the number of seeds that are going to play in certain spots, and you can put a seed in and just not have the name of the team in there yet. So brackets, kind of as you start to seed and get close to that, you'll start to fill those in more. And again, you've got a nice direction sheet on your website help guide with brackets to get you in and moving with those.
Laura, real quick, do you want to address the time issue?
Oh.
Having to enter a time, but you can choose not to display it?
Thanks, Amy. The most common question on brackets is, I don't know the time that my game is going to be. In the brackets, you do have to enter a time, but you also have a checkbox that says, don't show the time. So if you know the date, but not the time, you would still enter that date and put in a time of 7 o'clock or whatever. Check the box that says, don't display the time, and then it'll show just the date and not the time. That's kind of the most, thanks, Amy. That's usually the most common question of, it won't save, you have to have a time in, but you can choose not to show that time. The next slide, I believe, talks about media, and I'm going to turn it over to Tim Layton.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your role in serving as volleyball section managers. Just a few things to share with you today. We'll start off with the streaming requests, and there will be streaming requests that are made at the level where the media, the region secretary and the league. Anybody who applies for streaming will apply concurrently to the league and the region secretary at the same time. Those two entities will approve any streaming. So if you have a question on who may be approved or not, the Minnesota State High School League has an approved media list, and that is found on the media page on the High School League's website. If an organization is listed on that media approval piece, then you know that they have been properly vetted by the communications team here at the Minnesota State High School League. If they are a streamer, they should be conscientious enough to get a hold of a site administrator or a section manager prior to an event to alert you that they are on the way. All media here is under local control when it comes to being there on site. So you as administrators, you have the ability to be able to prioritize where media will be. You have the ability to prioritize where a streamer can be or post-game interviews can be. So those are key things as we look at that. If you have any issues or concerns as it relates to the prioritizing of media accommodations while on site, please be happy to reach out to me, and I will help you with that prioritization of the media members that will be covering your events. The other items here you see are the tools that we have for you. Anybody that comes to you and says they will be streaming, please know that they already will be vetted on the front end, and they should be on that approved list to do that. Any questions or concerns there, please feel free to reach out to me. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you for your time and for serving as a section manager for volleyball.
Perfect. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate you spending some time with us today. All right, on to the next portion of the meeting. We are going to talk a little bit about some information that will help you better run your section volleyball tournament. We are going to go through the agenda. Please make sure that you're reviewing the rules and policies that volleyball has, especially the Minnesota modifications. Using the blue, gray, and white ball is very appropriate and important to do. You will all be getting a box of those for your volleyball finals. And if you don't get those, please contact Amy and I as soon as you possibly can. Please make sure you're also aware of the MSHSL volleyball rules book. It's important that site managers and section managers have these available to them so they can reference those as they need them. Emergency protocols and emergency action plans. If you are using a venue that is not necessarily a high school, please make sure you're reaching out and confirming that they have emergency protocols as well as emergency action plans. It's very important that you have on file emergency action plans for those sites that you plan to use, whether they're high schools or alternate venues. COVID protocols. There are some COVID protocols still in play, possibly postseason protocols. We will go over those. Please make yourself aware of any COVID protocols at a venue that you may possibly be using as well. Tiebreakers. It's really important that tiebreakers are set and communicated as you are doing your seeding. You should be working with your region secretaries and the region committee to establish those tiebreakers and seating policies ahead of time. And I know most of you have those done. Severe weather policies. We don't see that a lot in volleyball, but there is the off chance that it could snow sometime in late October and early November. So please make sure you have plans in mind should you need to move something. Responsibility for spectator conduct. Please review those responsibilities. Please make sure you're working with each school's administrative team as to who's going to be responsible for spectator conduct as you administer your program and your tournament. All right, Amy, we can move to the next one. All of the documents that Amy sent today will be on the section manager's guide that Laura shared with you. It's really great resource for you. And if you should need anything that we're talking about today, all of those documents should be there. And you can also reach out to me if you have questions on something that I mentioned today that was unclear. All right, Amy. Chain of communication. It's really important that you establish this with your coaches as well as your activity administrators early to make sure that they know how the communication should flow, definitely to your local site level. And then they should be referring to you as tournament managers if there are issues. And then you should be working with your region secretaries. And then your region secretary can elevate it to me if you have questions. You guys can call me too if you have questions, but it's really important to work through that region secretary and tournament manager for any issues that may arise. Your site managers for all sites should be assigned. Really important to, prior to seeding, confirm that all the teams assigned to your section are going to be participating in sections. I think that Laura works through this a little on the website, but it's also really important if you're hearing something to notify us so we can work through that, okay? All right, confirm again, like Laura mentioned, that your tournament manager information is updated on our website. It would be best if this was not a member of your coaching staff for a specific event. It's really important that we identify someone other than the coaching staff to be the tournament manager at that specific event. Names and cell phone numbers for all tournament managers should be posted on the Minnesota State High School League website. And please make sure, again, to make sure you're familiar with the rules and policies, which is found on the volleyball page. Go ahead. A hot item, and I know that I've gotten a couple questions already from tournament managers. We did not switch sides during volleyball in the regular season. This is something that sections need to determine how they will manage this during the tournaments. And something that I know coaches are wondering about. At the state tournament, we will be switching sides. The high seed will choose the side, and then teams will switch sides. And then we will coin flip to determine the serve or receive. And so this is our procedure. This is also in your tournament manager guide. And it's really important that as a section, you determine how you are going to do this for your section tournament. Establishing a communication chain. We talked about this earlier, making sure all site managers know who to contact. That would be great. Provide those contact numbers to your site managers in case there is an emergency. And when in doubt, you can always call me. That's my cell phone number. I prefer if you kept it to yourselves and didn't share with all of your coaches, but please contact me if there are any concerns. Really important to enter the results on the Minnesota State High School League bracket immediately following the match. It's especially important for the section finals on Saturday evening, as this will affect our timeline and how we process for the next day, because we will have a meeting on Sunday for teams that qualify. we want to get information to those qualifying teams as quickly as we can. So the sooner you can get those updated, the better. Just a reminder, we don't have a ton of these, knock on wood, I'm probably going to jinx it, but we don't have a ton of these in volleyball. But please review bylaw 409, incidents and ejections, and make sure that you are protecting your officials after the contest. Or remember to make sure that site managers are reporting these ejections to the tournament manager. Very important, as the procedure for section and state tournament for a student athlete who's been ejected is different than that of the regular season. They are not allowed to be in the bench area if they have been ejected prior. So it's really important that those ejections are reported to the tournament manager. That tournament manager then reports it to Amy. And then it's also important to remind those officials to complete a Minnesota State High School League incident report form. We're just trying to focus definitely on consistency. As a league, we are really working on these tournament manager meetings so that we make sure you guys have the information you need to be the most successful you can in running tournaments for our teams. Providing site managers with notes from today, making sure site managers are aware of those expectations, sharing documents as needed that are on your dashboard, and then really making sure that people have access to that volleyball rule book, should there be questions. Again, focusing on the consistency, just discussing the key points and rules and policies with tournament and site managers, following the rules and policies at the section level, which would really include the 15 players, 3 coaches, and 2 student managers. It's very helpful if that's followed at every round of sections, because when they get to the state tournament, then they better understand that that will be the expectation. As a note, any student that's not in uniform but on the bench is counted as a student assistant or manager. And I don't know that student assistant is the right word, probably just manager at this point. So again, that official squad and roster is really important. 3 coaches on the bench. We do allow up to 3 additional personnel as they are identified as a stats person, a trainer, or a team doctor. And note that they would need to have those credentials when they come to the Excel Center. So it would be prudent for you to require those credentials as well. These 3 additional people need to remain behind the bench. And students who are possibly doing stats would need to be in 7th through 12th grade. Really important to make sure you have that. Please remember that coaches must be school approved. That is a state statute and league policy. Just remind coaches during your section meetings that those coaches need to have that coach's clipboard done. And that's an important piece. There should be no last minute coaching additions. Again, the roster, the lineup placed into the official score sheet prior to the first contest of section tournament is the official roster for the entire section tournament. Each school should have a copy of their roster on file, and there should be 15 players and 2 student managers. It's really important to have those listed on there. There is some language regarding ineligible players becoming eligible after the first game of the section tournament. An example would be that a student has to serve a chemical violation. They must be one of the 15 players on the game sheet and then scratched, leaving 14 in uniform. A student cannot be in uniform on the bench if he or she is ineligible. So that's a really important piece there. There is also an updated and injured COVID positive athlete who has been medically cleared for the first game of the section. They must be again identified on that 15-person roster. The student is removed from the roster and an injury replacement is put in that roster. With written medical clearance, and please note that medical clearance could be the school nurse. We're not requiring a student to go to a physician, but could be someone that is, working within their medical license to clear that student per the guidelines that are established, could be returned to that roster. Make sure you're reviewing and discussing medical protocols and documents. It's really important that you identify school personnel that are medical versus tournament staff that are medical. Return to play with written approval from an appropriate healthcare professional is a really important piece. If they are injured or hurt during a section tournament, it's important that you have that documentation from an appropriate healthcare professional. Section assigned medical providers have the final say for all medical decisions. It's really important because that's the protocol we follow at the state tournament as well. And then making sure we're requesting the transfer of care forms prior to the tournament, and then distributing to the site managers if schools are going to bring their own medical personnel. And those are available again on your dashboard, tournament manager dashboard. General information, again, really making sure you're talking with your region secretary if there is a weather-related postponement. Merchandising, really important that only region approved merchandise can be sold at section games. If you have questions on that, your region secretary should be able to identify and help you with that. And then 2 bond game balls will be provided by the Minnesota State High School League to use at your section final matches. And these will be mailed out to each section manager. Amy, I'm not sure if you want to jump in and just let us know the timeline or when they should start looking for those.
I don't know at this time. As soon as the balls are delivered here, we'll get them out to your section. A quick note that goes with that. In past years, when we used to sell paper tickets, you each got a box to hand off to your championship team with pre-sale tickets and certificates and things like that. I don't know. I don't think that we'll have anything like that because certificates are online, tickets are online, etc. If we have to send you something that's going to get handed off to your section championship team, that will be included in the box of balls that you receive. So we'll get those out as soon as they arrive here in the office, and I'll send out an email once those are sent out to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. And with that, we will just highlight some of the things really important that you update those section final brackets on Saturday as you finish. That will help Amy and myself and Laura to identify the teams we need to communicate with. Again, like Amy just mentioned, most information will be sent electronically to qualifying teams. There could be the possibility of a parking pass that may come to you to help get to those coaches, but probably not. And if so, we will let you know as soon as we find out. Electronic ticketing will be the process for all state tournaments. And it's really important that you work with your families as your schools qualify to understand that process. We will have a state tournament seating qualifier meeting on November 6th at 9:30. Can you help us to remind those coaches that win your section tournaments to look for information as well as look on their coach's dashboard, as it will be there. Those are our big highlights. And again, I wanted to just take the time to thank you all for doing a great job running our section tournaments. And we know that they're important to our families and our schools. And I really appreciate your time as we move forward. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me or Amy or Laura, and we can walk you through those. I think that is all for today. Thanks so much. Have a great day.